73. About
Okay.
halfway through. God, we're going to be doing this for an eternity.
Yes, we are. Hello, I'm James.
And I'm Emme.
And welcome back to the Bestiary Monster Manual A through Z. We're doing one of my favorite ever things today. What is it, Emme?
It is the Storm Giant.
Storm Giants! They're huge and made of storm. I don't know why I did the Transformers soundtrack thing, but anyway, yes! Storm
It's pure
Giants.
excitement. It's pure, overwhelming excitement. They're really cool, you guys. They are mythic level giants. These giants are rarely even seen by other giants. They are rarely even seen by each other. They are incredibly rare, incredibly powerful, incredibly important to their people, incredibly important within the ordning. They are the top of the ordning. We have finally reached the pinnacle, and they are a lot.
Indeed. My monster manual just fell off the desk.
It's Storm Kings, they fury, just
Yes. Storm Giants are, aside from Anam, the god of all giants, and his children, the progenitors of the various giant kind, Storm Giants are at the tip top. They are immensely powerful. On your huge quest, this is where you reach the hugest. And yeah, they're just they're at a level that they should almost be classed above all other giant kind. They are 10 feet taller than the average hill giant, standing at about 26 to 30 feet tall. Like, what?
It's so insane. I remember we were talking about this because, as we've mentioned, James and I have been doing Storm King's Thunder together. He is running it and I'm a player. My character in that campaign is about 6 feet tall, give or take. And that means that my character to a hill giant is a hill giant to a storm giant.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so cool.
And so with this sense of being so literally and figuratively above everything beneath them, they're, as you say, incredibly rare, and incredibly focused on just concerns that might be seen as above small folk. They have a big focus on prophecy and portents and omens, and because they're incredibly long-lived, storm giants can spend decades or even centuries debating the meanings of various signs that they have seen in the world, most of which will be completely genuine, actually signs of prophecy, just completely beyond our small folk ken to comprehend.
Not only do they have a very close relationship with the gods, being considered again almost a holy level of giant kind, but at some point, even just from the sense of they watch everything move. To them, what just must be so quickly, they can watch the pattern of things and keep track of those patterns of things, the movements of other things, the patterns of nature. So beyond just even a holy sense, there's just simply the sense of these are creatures who observe and have lived long. So
Right.
Not only are they deeply connected to their gods, they're just deeply connected to the world. They live in extreme isolation, in extreme environments. They are amphibious. They can breathe both air and water, and you are just as likely to find a storm giant on the top of a mountain as you are in the bottom of a trench. They are a lot, and running into one is almost certainly never a coincidence.
Yes. So yeah, a couple of things to address there. I mean, most other giants are connected to some kind of elemental force. Hill and stone for earth, for example, fire, obviously, frost, ice slash water, arguably. But storm giants are, again, an enormity in their own right. They are connected to the planes of air and water and can travel between them almost freely. They are creatures of extremes, which I'll get to in a second. But yes, you will almost never just run into a storm giant. They just are solitary creatures and will keep away from almost anything that can distract them from the need to examine the existence around them and any signs of prophecy that might portend. So I have a few reasons as to why you might meet a storm giant. One, story reasons, because the plot says so. And that could be anything. And that's completely fine because there has to be a story. Well, it doesn't have to be, but there usually is. Two, you want something it has, and it doesn't want to let you have it. Three, it's being controlled by something else and does not want to fight you, but is being made to. And that is indicative of a problem far greater than potentially you have the capability to deal with, because if something is controlling a storm giant, it is incredibly powerful.
It's pretty ugly. If something's got a storm giant, that's a lot. So at a base level, the most basic storm giant entry that we have here in the monster manual. There are more and others, but as we've mentioned before, we're not going to necessarily cover them in this episode. But the most basic storm giant is a challenge rating 13. All of their stats are ridiculously high.
Absurd.
Just the lowest one is I think a 14 for their dex. Just ridiculously high. Their DC save is 17 against spells and things like that. They are immune to a whole bunch of stuff just simply by the nature of the fact that they're just very wise and intelligent and old. And in order to control something this momentous, the influence that you would have to hold would be tremendous, and also probably gigantic in a very literal sense, and also probably not very well intentioned. The idea of trying to control this kind of a force of nature, I can't imagine anyone who means well trying to do such a thing.
No. And the repercussions of trying to do such a thing would be incredible. As I mentioned, storm giants are creatures of extremes. Their progenitor, the eldest son of Anan, the Allfather, Strunmaus, which is just a great word to say. Like, if you're watching this video, take a second, pause. It's okay, it doesn't affect us in any way. Pause and say Strunmaus. Felt good, didn't it? So Strunmaus is the progenitor of all storm giants and known for extremes of mood and thus behavior. Incredible mirth and joy and happiness at one extreme. Song, story, legend, and then at the other, incredibly dark and stormy grumpiness. And when a storm giant gets grumpy, people die. It is almost like incurring the wrath of a literal hurricane, because in some occasions that's actually what it is. I've likened a storm giant being upset at a village to us swatting a fly, and you can imagine the ramifications of that.
That, I think, really is an excellent way of putting it, mostly because it implies, again, I mean, I know we keep saying it, but giants are big. They're huge. Their concerns are simply almost incomprehensible to us. If you think about it with the sky and how long they have a tendency to live, uh, their connection to the world and to the gods is so very, very deep. They simply would have alien whims at that point. Just their interests and their focus in the world would feel almost so completely alien, and we would feel so completely small in comparison to whatever it is that they're doing. Which is again why I come back to running into one of these guys is portentous in and of itself. I imagine fighting them's possible, but again, it would have to be thinking you need to be removed for some reason.
And I think any DM worth their salt would absolutely try and deliver on the sense of grandeur that moment of encountering one of these beings would have. I mean, like just looking at the art, the angle from which this is portrayed, you are clearly looking up at this being from a way lower stature than it might be used to meeting its compatriots, if at all. It's got this sword that is almost as large as it is. It's got a very imperious presence to it. The interesting kind of intersection of a feeling of Norse mythology and almost like a kind of Greco-Roman feel.
I was just noticing that in the armor myself, the extreme classical nature of this piece of art. It feels very, again, somewhere in between mythology and pantheon almost. Like you can see the inspirations of Poseidon and Thor in this guy somehow simultaneously, and it really lends to the majesty of who this person is.
I think that's a great way of putting actually that kind of meeting of mythology and pantheon. Just look at that beard. It's magnificent.
Gold,
My God.
right?
I mean, I've become close in the past, but the women in my life haven't generally been a fan of it. So
Whew.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. And you can see next to this guy, again, there's these birds sort of flying around him that give that sense of
Scale reference.
There's the lightning in this giant's hand, which also is a thing that they can do in combat. They can just summon lightning.
Only giant with a rechargeable ability. Like most other giants are like, yeah, I'm going to hit you with a massive sword or club or throw a rock at you. The storm giant can summon a lightning bolt. Like, this is Zeus energy that we're getting here.
Without a doubt. Again, the Zeus, Thor, Poseidon mishmash here of just awesome, cool, mythic stuff. They're just neat. Again, I keep coming back to, reasons I know we've talked about it at length, but reasons you would run into this guy. He's so important. And when you do, as a character, run into one of these guys, you can know that it lends to that sense of mythicness, of importantness, of grandness, of scale of something you're doing. Whatever it is you're doing, it's important and earth-shattering.
That there are things in the world far beyond you.
Thank you so much for joining us this week on The Bestiary. Have you ever had a conversation with a storm giant? Did you climb to his heights or fall to her depths? And what, pray tell, did she portend in your existence? Please tell us in the comments about it down below. We would really love to know some more. And while you're down there, you can check out all the links for all of our social media, and you can follow us just a wee bit more. You can subscribe, you can watch some more videos here, and join us next week when we discuss the gibbering mouther.